Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. This is going to be the Darth Maul Legend Edition lightsaber from the EFX collection. And because of the sheer size of Darth Maul's, double-handled lightsaber, we're going to have to kind of do this review in multiple cuts, because in the past with regular size lightsaber hilts, my usual way of doing it is I just kind of sit, right? And then I have my phone holder, and that leaves both hands free to sort of, examine the lightsaber and do all of that. And I'm still going to do that. But because of the length of it, it just makes it more difficult to do that. And so I'm going to have to do it in parts and then stitch it together. So this first part is just going to be sort of an overview of the lightsaber, a little bit of history, and then I'll skip to the cut. So this is the certificate of authenticity, and I'm going to go through that with both hands, but I'm going to put it aside for now. And so let's just sort of, get a panoramic view of this thing. So as you can see, I'm having to hold the camera to be able to show you, this entire hilt. This is by EFX. This is the third lightsaber that I've reviewed, and I believe really the last one. So, EFX, again, just for those of you who haven't watched my other videos, it's a company that came along after Master Replicas went out of business. It was started by a few employees of Master Replicas. But again, just because of the changing economic times, they were nowhere near as successful or comprehensive as Master Replicas. They tried to kind of start quite a few lines, ran into some financial issues, never really recovered. And they became, unfortunately, quite a controversial company, almost like a licensed scam artist, so to speak. They would take tons of money from, deposits from, customers, and then they would just never deliver product. These pre-orders would just languish for years and years. And it's actually literally only this year that they've begun to try to, restore the reputation. One of the founders actually passed away. I believe his name was Brian Ono. He actually passed away. And then, other people came in to take over the company, and they're actually starting to move some product. Now, whether that lasts or not is anybody's guess. Again, in my opinion, EFX has sort of given up any right for any faith, from the fans. But be that as it may, this is the company, for better or for worse, that has the Star Wars license. There are some rumors that they may or may not be able to hold on to it after this year, but there's been no independent corroboration. So for now, these are the guys that have the keys to the kingdom. They have the license for Star Wars to make these replicas, for better or for worse. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, that any other company would necessarily do better than EFX. In point of fact, I don't think they can. The closest is a company called Regal Robot, whose offerings are just insanely overpriced. In my opinion, they're selling little tiny maquettes for $1,000. There was a gaffy stick from a Tusken Raider they were selling for $2,000 plus. And so it could be just that in 2023, in today's, collecting environment, this is kind of what the prices have come to. And this is what, you can expect, right? So it just kind of shows you again how special was the Master Replicas era, where they actually had the license, they had the insanity of the people who love Star Wars, and they had the actual factories in China who are capable of, doing this type of mass production work at a cost that wasn't, simply insane. So this is just a long preamble to explain why EFX never really made more than 3 of these so-called high-end lightsabers. They only did the Ahsoka, and then the Luke reveal, and then this is the Darth Maul. I think they did so-called stunt lightsabers. They had a Dooku, a Luke, maybe some others. But the problem, with the stunt one-to-one lightsabers is that, those were all resin. And as we'll get into with this review, Resin is just simply, in my opinion, an unacceptable medium to recreate lightsaber hilts, period. So this is very different, and it's kind of odd, right? Because each of the 3 lightsaber products that EFX put out are all like actually kind of different. And you kind of feel like, are they going to start their own line? Each one were they meant to start their own line, or what was going on? But the Ahsoka Tano, for instance, was a signature version. Even though it was from an animated series of Clone Wars, they got Dave Filoni, the director, to sign it. So okay, that's like a signature series, I guess. But it was a little bit odd because again, that hilt was actually not from the movie per se, but just from the animated series. I'm trying to shift angles a little bit. I have to stand up far away because again, that's sort of what's required in order to showcase this hilt because it's just so large and long. So then we have that. Then we have the Luke reveal, which again wasn't ever really in the movie. It's like sort of like a deleted scene, and there was no signature associated with that. And then finally we have this piece, the Darth Maul. Now this one also, unlike the Luke reveal, this one was actually signed by the actor who portrayed Darth Maul, Ray Park, right? So you can see here clearly Ray Park, the signature, and then legend, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So you have the movie that this piece is from, and it says, Darth Maul lightsaber. I have number 223 out of a worldwide edition of only 500. And so again, my understanding is that this was maybe meant to be the first of a line of products that was going to be designated legend. And then maybe the reason it's a legend is because they wanted signatures for them. Okay, I guess. I guess that could be construed as a little bit of a backhanded slap to Dave Filoni at the time, because then Dave Filoni wasn't a legend. Shouldn't the Ahsoka Tano blade also be under the legend moniker? Granted, Dave Filoni was the guy that decided to put his name on it because at that time, there was no actual real live Ahsoka Tano. But still, Ashley Eckstein, portrayed the voice for it for like literally, years and years. And I guess maybe back then, all that time ago, she didn't have quite the notoriety. But maybe Ahsoka Tano herself was not as popular back then when they made that hilt. But in any case, I just feel like it's kind of weird. Okay, so here we go. Again, if you're talking about non-resin, non-stunt, quote-unquote high-end prop replicas of lightsabers, there's only 3. And this is the one with, with Ray Park's signature. They only made 500 of them. The base is basically identical. You have this sort of reflective acrylic. It's actually screwed down with 4 screws with the EFX logo, which is a nice touch. You have the Star Wars logo in the right lower hand corner, just like all of them. And then underneath the acrylic is this sort of brushed metal look. I don't know really why they went with this particular design rather than just giving us a mirror base, unless, of course, it's the same sort of reason, which is to save money, to reduce the chances of breakage. It's not bad per se, and there's certain from certain angles it actually looks nice enough. This isn't really a real mirror, it's just a reflective surface. I find the mirror to be classier, in my opinion, but of course it's more prone to breakage and cracks, which of course EFX did not want. I don't like the fact that, you have to screw this like acrylic on because it creates this potential space underneath and little dust particles do get trapped between it. And so if you look very closely, you're going to see that. You'll see areas where it can very easily smudge. Just kind of like not a very satisfactory decision, right? So it's not like master replicas made the perfect decisions all the time, but EFX always seem to have gone like, the opposite and made even worse decisions for how things, are supposed to look. But the base, again, is at least consistent. It's the same base as the Luke reveal, the same base as the Ahsoka Tano hilts. So moving on now to the actual stand. I've gone on record before, both, I think more in depth than the Ahsoka Tano review than my Luke review. I've got a record saying that I'm just really not a big fan of the fact that you made the legs or the acrylic holders or legs for the hilt, and you basically made a part of the display stand for the signature plaque or the plaque, okay? I kind of understand why they did it because, again, it's all about being cheap. They decided to do that because if you take these legs and then you basically seal it into the base and attach it into the base, into the mirror base like Master Replicas does, there were circumstances where due to just shipping, you would crack the mirror surface where the leg was actually attached into the mirror. Either in the older Master Replicas versions where they just glued the acrylic legs onto the mirror base, it would just fall off. And then later on, even worse, because they indented, there was indentations in the mirror base where the acrylic legs would sit. Sometimes because of the force, it would actually crack the mirror base. So I guess I understand why they didn't want to do that, but it just feels very cheap. Number one problem is it feels cheap in the sense that, you've taken this like separate like little pieces of acrylic leg, you have to slide it in, you have to screw it, you have to tighten the, little Phillips screw behind it. It's kind of wobbly. It just feels cheap. Okay, so number one, I don't like that. As with everything with these EFX hilts, they just feel a little bit less, they feels a little cheaper, okay, than the Master Replicas versions. And the second of all, I do like the fact that you can slide the metallic plaque into the holder. It just feels like it holds on a lot more, there's like a lot more secure, right, than the old Master Replicas ones where you just had to like double-sided tape them, which is kind of stupid. But okay, I like the fact that you slide it in, right? But then here's the problem. When you make the legs, okay, part of the display plaque and then you put the hilt on, you basically lose the ability to move that plaque any other way. You forced it to be the center of the lightsaber display. Now, normally that's not a problem because you want it to be centered, but it does become an issue, as you can see with the Ahsoka Tano or later on with the Luke reveal, where if you want to, like, say, add a custom signature plaque, remember with Master Replicas, because the plaque is in a separate stand from the hilt, you can move the plaque left and right. And so it's very easy to put a signature plaque next to the original, the original plaque. But for EFX, that's impossible, right? Because this is like centered here. So I can show that with the Ahsoka Tano where there's no room to put the custom signature Ashley Eckstein signature plaque that I got because, the lightsaber is already stuck here onto the plaque. You can't put that other plaque anywhere else. You can't slide it left or right to make room for the additional plaque. So, well, obviously, this is a first world problem, and they certainly couldn't have imagined somebody maybe, creating additional plaques. This is like just a consequence again of what they decided to do. So I'm not a very big fan again of the way they decided to combine the stand for the lightsaber and basically incorporate it into the stand for the plaque itself. So long-winded way of saying, that kind of sucks. For a hilt like this, where it's extremely long, you can easily put another plaque on either side. It may not be as big a deal, although again, from a visual point of view, it's like not very comfortable because it's like asymmetric, right? You don't want to have like a plaque here. You want to move the two over so everything's centered. So from, again, a purely, sort of cosmetic point of view, from an aesthetic point of view, it sucks to have to do that. Now, for this, of course, we don't need to because guess what? This is a Legend edition. We already have Ray Park's signature, so it would be senseless to get another signature Ray Park. There's no need. We already have a signature. But for the Luke reveal, which isn't a signature edition, and for the Ahsoka, which is only signed by Dave Filoni, if you wanted to get, say, Mark Hamill, a Mark Hamill signed custom signature plaque, and if you wanted an Ashley Eckstein signature plaque, which I did get, then, again, you run into that problem because you're not able to have the flexibility of moving the plaque left or right because it's attached to the legs. So enough about that. Now let's just get to the actual plaque itself. I really do like it. I think it's very classy. I like the fact that it has this sort of gold color to sort of denote again that this is a legend. Not that there's anything wrong with the brushed metal look of the master replicas versions, but I think that this is a very nice, nice thing that EFX did to sort of distinguish themselves, right? To distinguish themselves from master replicas. So I definitely like the gold highlight, the gold metal. I like the information, here you go, serial number, worldwide limitation. At least they didn't do the kind of bonehead move the master replicas did later on, where they didn't even tell you the worldwide limitation. Again, showing you that master replicas was far from perfect. They made a lot of mistakes as well. I really kind of like the signature of Ray Park, very bold, with a marker that's very dark. So definitely am pleased with that. Legend, his name, and then of course the movie it's from. So I do prefer the plaque over what Master Replicas offers, just to show how special it is. Okay, so nothing wrong with that. And now we're going to come to the actual hilt itself. As you can see, this is really long, and they didn't leave very much leeway, between the length of the hilt and the length of the base. So this is a really very, very long, very, very heavy. And I do have a custom acrylic case, of course, being fabricated that's going to come in the next maybe week or so that I'll be able to put over this. So there you have it there. But it's going to be pretty tight. They don't leave too much distance from the ends of the lightsaber and the end of the base. So I will get into talking about this hilt in a bit more detail. While I've been talking about everything else, I've just been sort of spinning this guy around. So again, you can sort of see it from all different angles, both the back as well as the ends and the front. Look at it from above, you can see all of the buttons. And I'll come back to the lightsaber review in more detail because that's what we've got left. But before doing that, I am going to cut to the certificate of authenticity so we can take a look at that. So I'll see you after the cut, guys. Hey everybody, welcome back after the cut. So we're going to take a look at the EFX certificate of authenticities. And so here is, of course, the envelope. It's more square than the master replicas. You can see the EFX logo quite nicely. And then it opens up like this. I've already taken out the contents. So let's go over that in a little bit more detail. This is the generic return policy, limited warranty. Nothing too exciting here. And then we have actually the certificate of authenticity. This is the bag where the gold plaque actually came in. And then this is, of course, the registration form. A blast from the past. Here again is a sticker, that kind of amazing situation where whatever back in those days, I guess people wanted stickers so they could, put them somewhere, I guess. So here's the actual certificate. You can actually see a picture of the lightsaber. Then legend. Take a look at the back. 2013, 10 years ago, guys, that this was created. I like the very, very classy black cardboard paper. It's not cardboard, but it's like heavy paper, okay? I like the gold, kind of the gold embossing, the gold lettering, the kind of show that this is a legend product. The EFX logo, their website, it's all very classy. I'm very pleased with the fact that, again, they're doing the triptych where, just like with the Master Replica Signature Edition, it opens up and there's three panels to open up. And then you actually have the certificate on one side, and you have the picture of Ray Park, signing, and you have a picture of him in full costume as Darth Maul in that amazing, reveal in the Phantom Menace. Now, before I go on, I'm going to actually just move it up a little bit so that I have a little bit more room. That's better. So again, let's take a look at that. Very nice picture. And then, of course, Ray Park sort of t-shirts you got here. I don't know what that is. Is this his martial arts company? It looks like something called what? Something Baker, Ted Baker. All right, well, whatever it is, shows him signing the plaque, 2013. For these signature edition certificates of authenticity, just like with mass replicas, I really need them to have a picture of the person signing. So I'm glad they included that. I still can't believe, like, for Star Wars: A New Hope, Luke Skywalker signature edition lightsaber, that they neglected to have Mark Hamill's picture. Like, come on, master replicas, what were you thinking? So again, even though I've criticized EFX, master replicas certainly wasn't without their mistakes when they were creating things. So at least they learned from that. Here you go, certificate authenticity. Here's the prop replica. And this is nice enough, but again, not as nice or classy as the earlier master replicas versions, where they actually had a gold seal, and then the signatures by Rothman and the other guy. So no signatures here, and then of course here they're talking about a little bit of background about the prop. So I'm going to freeze it here, and then slowly move on up. Gives a little bit of background on Darth Maul, and then talks a little bit about the background of the prop. I don't know who Amy White is, but okay. I had actually special thanks to her for her contribution to the product. All right, so again, just sort of giving you a chance to read about the background. For those of you who are never going to own this, now you know the story behind it. And then I'm going to cut away to the actual review, where I'm going to actually handle the blade itself and talk a little bit more about my thoughts about that replica in some detail. So I'll see you after the cut. Hey everybody, welcome back after the cut. So now I've kind of moved the lightsaber out of the way so that I can, not the lightsaber, but the stand out of the way, so that I can actually pick it up and take a feel of this. Okay, so let's just kind of take a look from end to end. As you can imagine, I can't really show you every little thing, because again, this thing's just way too long, but hopefully I can show you some things. So I can't really even show you the end of this thing, so I'm gonna have to actually move move it back a little bit. So here is the end of the lightsaber, and then we're gonna go the other way, and you can see the end of that. So there's no actual engraving of EFX on either end. You can see that this is heavily weathered, as is their intent. Okay, now I'm going to put it back down so I can actually begin to show off the side parts of it. By the way, this area that I'm holding, that I'm feeling right here, the heavily weathered part, this is the only part of the lightsaber that is metal. Okay, the ends are metal, but everything in between is resin, which I think you can appreciate. And these are the rubber O-rings. That's obviously not resin. So we're gonna kind of go on the other side, and I'll show you again the metal emitters. I think all the way to here, where my finger is, all of these rings, this is all metal. You can clearly see actually the transition between the metal and the resin. Okay, so while I'm just kind of turning this around so you can kind of see all of this lightsaber hilt, let's talk about this. Let's get some background. So number one, while I really loved the scene where Darth Maul, sort of appeared, and I love that, lightsaber duel, the Duel of the Fates, where he's fighting Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon at the same time. I mean, we don't need to belabor that point. That's one of the epic scenes, right, of the prequel trilogy. I was never like a real big fan of the actual lightsaber itself. And the reason for this is because, for me at least, it never kind of, passed this, I don't know what to say. Like, it just didn't pass the smell test for me, where it didn't look iconic. It didn't look majestic. They just didn't seem, it seemed like the design department kind of laid down a little bit for this lightsaber hilt. Like, their design for the Phantom Menace was actually really a little bit mediocre in my opinion. I was not a huge fan of Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber hilt. It was very boring to me. Not that big a fan of even Obi-Wan Kenobi's. I mean, they made the Elite Edition fantastic. It was all right, and of course this lightsaber the same way. Not a huge fan of it. I mean, it was basically like longer in the sense that, okay, I get the gimmick. They just basically put two lightsabers together, double bladed, which is an awesome idea, but it seemed like, the design to me was just not very memorable. Certainly, nothing resembling the iconic status of the original trilogy hilts, or like Obi-Wan, where they were like literally taking, parts out of a jet engine, for God's sakes, to make it. There was, again, that legacy, that imagination. It just seemed to me to be lacking, for the hilts of the first movie, Phantom Menace. Now, luckily, they corrected that and went balls to the wall, gangbusters, in episode 2 and 3, where they had honestly some of the best lightsaber designs of the entire, Star Wars canon. We got Mace Windu with the gold. We got, Count Dooku's curved lightsaber, chrome. I mean, they're just some gorgeous, gorgeous hilts from episode 2 and 3. But episode 1, not too impressed. That's number 1. Number 2, when I saw it, just because of like the coloration, of the actual, blade, the hilt, it just looked kind of cheap to me. Like when I saw the versions, when I saw the master replica version, when I saw it on, kind of like the toy version, whatever. I mean, whatever I saw this hilt, because of the color of the metal, so to speak, it just screamed to me plastic or resin, and I was not a big fan of the look, okay? So let's just kind of get that out of the way. And in fact, of all the master replicas, sabers that I wound up buying, believe it or not, the signature version of the Darth Maul double-bladed hilt, that was actually I think that was the second to last hilt that I bought, and it came to me, from the UK, and it actually came literally on the same day as this hilt from EFX. And I wasn't even planning on getting this because, again, I have a duplicate, right? But it came up with great condition, not ridiculous price, and I just went okay, and I just went for it to be a completionist because, again, I own so many others. And I already got the Ahsoka, and I was gonna get the Luke reveal, so just to screw it, I go ahead and I'll get it. Okay, so I actually got this in first, and the Master Replicas one came in second. And I'm gonna review that next, and I'm gonna do another video comparing the two. So number 1, just like feeling this in my hand, I can tell you that it's definitely pretty light. Okay, and the reason it's light is because the only weight is from the metal emitters at the end. And definitely in the middle, everything in the middle they're basically cast resin, and you can tell that it is resin. And I just really am not a big fan of the quality of that. Now, EFX explains this because they said that in the actual prop department, the filming of the Phantom Menace, there was never any metal lightsabers used. It was all resin, whether it was the dueling version or the stunt version, it was all resin. And it had the metal caps at the end. And so their explanation was that they wanted to give you the most accurate prop replica possible. And so because it's made out of resin, then they're going to make this out of resin. This is the same explanation they gave for the upcoming Ahsoka Tano dual lightsabers and the Darksaber. And the rumor is, and I believe it, that they're going to make it die cast because that's what the material was, and that's how they made it on the set of the of Ahsoka and later on of the Mandalorian. Now, there's different opinions on this type of philosophy, and everyone has their own opinions. But my opinion is I've heard this argument for like a decade, and I hate that argument. I'm not a big fan of that. From my point of view, I think that when we're looking at prop replicas, we don't want the crap that the prop department throws together to get the movie done on time as fast as possible, knowing that CGI is going to be there, okay, to cover up all their mistakes. Like, we want a idealized version of what we see. We want a real lightsaber. And when you pass us cheap, shoddy materials and justify by saying that's the cheap crap they used in the prop department, then I just don't like that. Like, what if they decide to just make a lightsaber out of cardboard or something stupid like that? Because they're just trying to get the shot done. Are you gonna charge us $1,000 for a cardboard lightsaber? Now I realize that's a very hyperbolic, over the top example, but in my opinion, it lets prop companies get away with maximizing profit and playing on the naivete of the collectors who just want the quote-unquote real thing. See, I got news for you guys. It's not getting the real thing. You're not getting the actual screen-used replica, okay? Those are like hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. You're still getting a replica. And if you're gonna get a replica, why would you want to get a replica of resin, a replica of die cast? Cheap, shoddy materials. Don't let them get away with that and laugh their way to the bank and basically pull this like con man's explanation. No, we need to get metal. We need to get solid cast workmanship. That's what Master Replicas gave us, and they're still in a league of their own. They're still the class by which everything else is measured, and theirs wasn't completely accurate, but they sure as hell was the best that was out there. So that's my feeling on using resin and their justification. I don't like it. And the ironic thing is that when the Master Replicas, Maul lightsaber came in, and that was the one I looked at and thought it looked like resin. But then when you compare that, which was actually not resin but metal, you compare it to the crappy, cheap EFX resin, man, the difference is pretty insane. And you're gonna see that difference in my video when I compare the two. So I've been kind of moving up and down, showing you everything around it. So now that we've kind of got that little preamble out of the way, let's take a look. So here is the so-called cover tech, which is what you're supposed to use to hang the lightsaber on. I am absolutely bewildered by the fact, like, how does Maul actually walk around with this thing? That's actually something completely silly. I mean, this is basically like a long sword. And I forgot the lore explanation for how he's walking around with this gigantic thing up his pants. But whatever the case is, this is where you're supposed to clip it out of the belt clip. Can you clearly see the difference between the metal? And the minute you get to the resin, look at these pock marks, right? Look at these little air bubbles. Just horrible casting, horrible detail. I have no doubt that this is maybe what it looked like on the set. I don't want to see this, okay? Just terrible. When you look at the buttons, it just looks like cheap resin. Look at this. You definitely can tell that it's just kind of cast. There's no real quality to it. I don't even know if this button is metal. I don't think it is. I think it's resin as well. Just look at all the details. Like, it's just so soft. You can clearly tell it's nothing like metal. And again, every inch that I'm showing you just looks cheap. It doesn't look real. It looks fake. Look at this stuff here. Now look at the detail here, and then moving along, look at the ribs, so to speak, and then look at the black in between the ribs. It just looks horrible. Okay, I'm just sorry. Like, look at that. All resin. You can see the resin flash. They didn't even bother to clean it up. Remember, no, I'm not just a Star Wars collector. I'm like a statue collector. Okay, I've been collecting garage kits for like decades. So I know all about, good casting, the mold. This is terrible, no cleanup at all. Compare here with this, Like there's just no comparison, right? There's no comparison between the metal and the resin. So look at the soft details here. The knurling here just looks absolutely laughable. Like, you know, right over here, like what knurling is there, right? And then here we go. Look at this here. Absolutely a joke. You see that? You can see the, you know, like the air bubbles, the poor casting, all of this stuff. It just, you know, just absolutely terrible. Look at the so-called detail. When you hold this up to like really close magnification, it just simply does not stand up. I'm going to move this back into position. So at least this is the real rubber. And unlike the Master Replicas version, this rubber didn't completely degenerate. The Master Replicas versions were well known to have the rubber over 20 years essentially dry out and just snap. You have to get replacements off of the, I don't know, like Ace Hardware or something like that. But again, look at the detail or the lack of it. Look at how sloppy that looks. I mean, it just doesn't feel like it's a metal lightsaber at all. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but that's not what it looks like. You know, it's just, in my opinion, terrible, especially for what they're charging for this. Look again, look at the hole there. You know, they're basically air bubbles, you know, where like if you're a professional modeler, like, you know, before you paint a statue, you have to fill in those pock marks. You know, you have to clean it up. Look at this. You can see the little pock marks there, right? And then of course the rough resin between the ribs, just like the other side. Again, the same thing. It's symmetrical. Okay, it's symmetrical. So just as bad here on this end as on that. I mean, look at all that. The same pock marks. See that? It looks, guys, honestly, I mean, I don't know if you're seeing this, that I'm seeing this, but it just looks like ultra cheap. All right, ultra cheap. It looks, the problem here is that it's not just that it's resin, but it's obviously resin and obviously, you know, terribly cast, right? Like very rough. And they're basically trying to justify how rough it is by saying, well, that's what the original prop is like. And I mean, I just think that is a crock, a total crock. I'm trying to center this here. Okay. I don't even know what the heck is going on. All right, this is where it's supposed to be, okay? So let me adjust it so we can take a look at this thing, this bad boy from here, while I get my final thoughts. All right, so, I mean, I hope that, you know, you had a decent, you know, I gave you a decent look, right? Really, really close up at what this thing looks like. I don't know how much they charge for this thing, but you know, it's limited edition. It's only 500 made. It's got Ray Park signature. It's got a really classy certificate of authenticity. The base is fine. You know, the plaque is beautiful, but like all of the surrounding, you know, quality just falls short, because the best part of this like lightsaber, honestly, is the, you know, the emitter at the end, the metal emitter at the end. And then when you move to the rest of it, everything in between, it's just like a piece, it's just like a cheap resin, you know, cheap resin, poorly cast, very soft details. I mean, I think it's like an embarrassment. And when you are, you know, trying to release this on the heels of the Master Replica signature version, it just suffers so much in comparison. And so that's why the original Master Replica's Maul is still worth so much more than this. You can get this for like about $1,000 on the secondary market, depending on, you know, how complete it is, depending on the quality. But like honestly, you know, this was actually mentioned when this was first released, you know, by the collectors over 10 years ago. People talked about it. They called it out. They said, we don't want like a, you know, bad quality resin prop, okay, replica, just because that's what they used on set. We want something good quality. We want metal. We want an idealized version that we see. You know, we want in our collection the lightsaber that, you know, we think Maul has, okay? And they obviously, cater to a very different demographic. But what I'm offended by is the fact that all the decisions is always reflective of the bottom line. No acrylic case because that's too expensive. Now, granted, Master Replicas made the same decision. No mirror base, the whole stand situation, the resin, no metal, just everything screams cheap. And again, unfortunately, it might be one thing if you had cast the resin really, really well. Sometimes extremely well done resin and well painted resin, right? Can give you the illusion of metal very, very, successfully. But the problem here is that once you decided to cast this lightsaber in resin, you then bring paint into it. And this is a horrific paint job. Dull, matte gray, no shading, no detail, no effort. Absolutely lowest common denominator paint job. With Master Replicas, you didn't have to worry as much about it because they're using the real thing, right? They're using aluminum, they're using stainless steel. The paint, they're using the actual metal buttons. Everything's metal, metallic. So from that point of view, the paint doesn't matter as much because the material itself screams quality. The material itself screams authenticity. Here, you have resin, which is obviously not metal, and now you're supposed to try to paint it in a way that mimics metal, and they did a terrifically horrible job of it. When you look at it, there's no way you can look at this and be fooled for even a second that this is anywhere close to metal. Like, there's just no way. You look at that and it's obviously just badly painted resin cast, okay? So basically when I see this, then I realize that's what all the stunt sabers from EFX look like. A stunt Dooku, a stunt Luke. It's basically cheaply cast, poor detail, badly painted resin of the lightsaber hilts. Again, when you compare that stuff to what Master Replicas have put out years earlier, I mean, I just say it, it's an embarrassment. So there you have it. I bought this because, again, I'm a completionist. There's only 500 out there, and it's got Ray Park's signature on a gorgeous gold plaque. It's all good. But that's because I'm a lightsaber guy. But for those of you out there who's looking for a Maul hilt to add to your collection, under no circumstances, in my opinion, should you get this. Unless this is more important than this, which I don't think it should be. Go for the Master Replicas signature edition if you can get it. It's still not ridiculous. It's about anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500. If you can swing that, the non-signature versions are cheaper than that. The quality of the Master Replicas build is just way, way higher. The rubber O-rings notwithstanding. So there's not a whole lot more I have to say than that. I think it's been pretty thorough. I showed you the base, I showed you the plaque, showed you the certificate of authenticity, I showed you, the hilt from a panoramic view, turning it around, and I got it in my hands and really, looked at it closely and, give it the good and the bad. So, this is it. This is my EFX Darth Maul Legend Edition, signature edition by Ray Park. The next review will be the Master Replica signature version, and then we'll have one more comparing the two. And by the way, how crazy is it that you gave us a legend designation in, again, brushed gold, and you give us that, right? And then you wind up not giving us an acrylic case, giving us a saber that looks like this, which is basically, except for the ends, it's essentially just, I mean, you gotta be kidding me, just like a resin, hilt. It's just, this is the only hilt I have from Master Replicas and EFX out of the 29 that's in my possession. 25 Master Replicas, and then the 4, from EFX. This is the only one that's like resin. A cheap stunt version with metal emitters. Ahsoka was metal, Dark Side Ray metal, Luke reveal metal. I mean, this is by far, the worst that EFX had to offer, and so tragic that they created this gorgeous gold plaque signature and they put such a poor product on there. All right, that's my unfiltered review. Until next time, do take care.